Ella Matthews had known from the moment she married Ryan that his mother, Margaret, despised her. Margaret never hid it. At Ella's own birthday dinner, she leaned back in her chair and loudly said, "Some gold digger you found, son. I hope she's worth it." Even though Ella was the one who had quietly paid for Margaret's meal. Ryan flushed red, embarrassed. Ella smiled through the sting. Margaret's disdain bled into every corner of their lives. She threw a fit when Ryan bought Ella a modest $2,500 engagement ring, calling it wasteful. Once, Ella discovered that her work clothes had been replaced with cheap knockoffs from a discount store. When she confronted Margaret, the older woman smirked and said, "Well, that's what suits you. Maybe now people will see who you really are." Ryan's reassurances, "Don't let her get to you, Ella. I love you and that's never going to change," were comforting but temporary. Margaret's eyes always carried a glint of calculation, like she was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment and subscribe to this channel for more. The first sign that things were getting worse appeared in the form of a gray sedan. Ella noticed it parked outside her office one morning, then at the gym, then trailing her to the grocery store. She mentioned it to Ryan as they brushed their teeth one evening. "Babe," she said, spitting into the sink, "I think I'm being followed." Ryan chuckled softly. "Followed? Ella, you're imagining things. My mom might be mean, but she wouldn't actually hire someone to trail you." But Ella's gut told her otherwise. 3 weeks later, her fears were confirmed. She returned home from work one afternoon to find a thick manila folder sitting in the middle of the coffee table. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Inside were photos, timestamps, and reports from a private investigator. Her entire life for the last 3 months laid out in sterile black and white. The report suggested that a male coworker buying her coffee meant she was having an affair. Her stops at the bank were framed as secret accounts. She understood instantly. Margaret wanted her to find these files. This was the beginning of a new game. The setup came during Easter dinner. Ella had been clearing plates when her 8-year-old niece, Lily, shrieked, "Grandma's bracelet is gone." Everyone paused. Margaret gasped dramatically, clutching her chest. "My gold bracelet? Someone must have taken it." She made a theatrical show of looking under napkins behind centerpieces. Then, in a voice dripping with false innocence, she said, "Maybe we should check the purses." Ella's stomach dropped. Ryan hesitated, but his mother's authority was hard to ignore. Margaret reached into Ella's handbag and there it was, the missing bracelet. Gasps filled the dining room. Ella felt the blood drain from her face. Ryan's expression shifted in an instant, a flicker of doubt crossing his eyes. Margaret sighed heavily, shaking her head like a queen dispensing mercy. "I won't press charges, Ella. We all make mistakes," she said with a sanctimonious smile. Ella sat frozen, humiliated, while the family whispered like she was dirt under their shoes. That night, in the privacy of their bedroom, she whispered to Ryan, "You believe me, right?" He hesitated before pulling her into his arms. I want to," he said. That pause hurt worse than the accusation. 2 weeks later, Margaret invited Ella to lunch at a fancy downtown bistro. Ella went, clinging to the fragile hope that her mother-in-law might apologize. But the moment she sat down, Margaret slid a check across the table. $50,000, she said casually. Ella stared at it, speechless. When she didn't move, Margaret tore it up, wrote a new one. 75. Then a third. 100. Every woman has a price. Name yours. Ella's hand trembled over her water glass. Are you trying to pay me to leave your son? Margaret smiled thinly. It worked before. You're not even the prettiest girl he's dated. I'm just saving him the heartbreak. Ella swallowed the lump in her throat. In that moment she realized this was not just dislike. Margaret had declared war. The lunch ended with Ella walking out, the torn checks on the table behind her, and a cold determination settling in her chest. September's family dinner was the breaking point. Margaret was unusually kind in the weeks leading up to it, complimenting Ella's cooking, sending small gifts. Ryan noticed. Maybe she's finally coming around, he said hopefully. Ella wary said nothing. That night after dessert, Margaret clapped her hands. Let's share vacation photos. She connected her phone to the big TV in the living room. At first the images were normal, beach selfies, family group shots. Then Ella's stomach lurched. There she was, kissing an unfamiliar man in a hotel lobby. Another photo showed them holding hands at a candlelit dinner. Gasps filled the room. Ryan turned to her, eyes wide. "Ella, what is this?" "They're fake," she stammered, voice shaking. "I've never even seen that man before." But Margaret had already started her monologue about a mother's instincts and protecting her son. Later, Ella would discover the shadows were wrong, the metadata faked. None of it mattered in that moment. As she walked to her car with the weight of everyone's judgment behind her, she realized Margaret wasn't just trying to ruin her marriage. She was trying to erase her from the family entirely. That night, Ryan didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of their bed, scrolling through the fake photos again and again. Ella sat beside him, her voice low. "You know that's not me." He rubbed his face, exhausted. "I want to believe you, but this is a lot. I've never even met that man, Ryan." He looked at her, his eyes heavy with doubt. "I just need some space to think." Ella watched him get dressed and walk out the door without her. Sitting in her car later, parked just a few houses away, she stared at their porch light. "She's winning," she whispered. And then a thought struck her like lightning. If Margaret wanted to drag family secrets into the open, maybe it was time Ella played the same game. But this time smarter. Quieter. She hired a private investigator of her own. His name was Marcus, and he had a reputation for being discreet and thorough. "Dig into Margaret Simmons," she said. "Every corner. I don't care how far back you go." It took 2 months before Marcus called. "I've got something," he said. They met in a parking lot. Marcus handed her a folder. "Her husband's nephew? Doesn't look anything like his father. But he's got Margaret's nose. And her exact green eyes. Timeline says she had her first kid 6 months premature. Except the cousin was born 6 months before that." "Meaning?" Ella flipped the pages, jaw tightening. "She had an affair with her husband's brother while he was out of town." Marcus nodded. "And kept it hidden for decades." Ella thanked him, her mind racing. The game had changed. Ella returned to her role as the quiet, shamed daughter-in-law. She smiled at family gatherings, offered to bring dessert, and thanked Margaret publicly for giving her another chance. Ryan noticed the change and slowly let his guard down again. Then in mid-November, Ella pitched an idea at family dinner. "You know those DNA kits? The ancestry ones? Wouldn't it be fun to do them as a family for Christmas?" Margaret raised an eyebrow. "What for?" "Heritage," Ella replied. "I mean, Ryan's always wondered where your green eyes come from." The rest of the family loved the idea. Margaret, always obsessed with family image, agreed reluctantly. Ella smiled to herself. Hook, line, and sinker. Christmas morning arrived with beautifully wrapped boxes for everyone. 23andMe kits, Ella announced with a grin. Margaret smiled, but her eyes were tight. Over the next few weeks, the family group chat was full of excited updates. "I'm 12% Scandinavian. I matched with a cousin in Idaho." Then came the real fireworks. Ryan's cousin, Margaret's supposed nephew, got his results. Half-sibling match with Ryan. The family fell into stunned silence. Ryan stared at his phone. What does that mean?" Ella stayed quiet, letting the silence settle. Ryan looked up at his mother. "Mom." Margaret's face paled. The test must be wrong. But science wasn't on her side. The fallout was immediate. Margaret's husband packed a bag and left by New Year's Eve. The divorce was messy and very public. The rest of the family took sides. Most were disgusted by the years of lies. At the first family dinner without her, held at Ella and Ryan's house, Ryan pulled Ella aside. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "For not believing you. For ever doubting you." Ella hugged him, but inside something still felt uneasy. The war wasn't over. She'd won a battle, but Margaret wasn't the kind of woman who accepted defeat. That suspicion became reality when Ella found out she was pregnant. She hadn't even had time to tell Ryan when a bouquet of lilies appeared at her office. The card read, "Congratulations. Grandmother knows." Ella's breath caught. Her phone buzzed. A text from an untraceable number. "You took my family. Now I'll take what grows inside you. Blood is blood." Ella's hands shook. Victoria, her co-worker and Ryan's younger sister, noticed immediately. "Ella, you okay?" "I'm fine," Ella lied, grabbing her purse. She left the office without saying goodbye. drove in circles for nearly an hour, checking her mirrors, heart pounding. At home she locked every door, pulled every curtain. She didn't even hear Ryan come in. He found her curled on the bathroom floor, the positive pregnancy test still in her hand. Ryan knelt beside her. "What is it?" Ella showed him the test. Then the card. Then the text. He read the message twice. His face went rigid. He grabbed his phone and called his mother. No answer. 2 minutes later, a new message popped up. "Congratulations on the baby. I'll be there every step of the way." Ryan slammed his phone on the sink. "She's gone insane." That night they installed a new security system. New locks. Cameras at every entrance. Ryan took emergency leave from work. They started driving different routes to every destination. Nothing predictable. But no matter what they did, she was always one step ahead. It started with packages, unmarked boxes arriving at their doorstep. Inside, a luxury crib, a high chair, designer baby clothes. No return addresses. No receipts. Next came the email. Margaret had found Ella's work address and sent a glowing pregnancy announcement to the entire company. Her boss pulled Ella aside, smiling. "Maternity leave plans?" Ella clenched her jaw. Margaret had stolen the moment she wanted to share on her own terms. At her first prenatal appointment, the receptionist blinked in confusion. "You just called to cancel." "No," Ella said. "That wasn't me." They spent an hour setting up passwords and verifying identities. Margaret had tried to access Ella's medical records. She wasn't just meddling now. She was invading. Ryan drove to Margaret's apartment to confront her. Ella waited in the car, watching through the window. He saw them arguing. Margaret stood calm, smug. Ryan's hands shook as he returned. "She's turned her spare room into a nursery," he said quietly. "She picked out names. She says she's talked to a lawyer about grandparent rights." Ella covered her mouth. The family began splitting again. Some said they were overreacting. Others knew exactly what Margaret was capable of. Ryan's father, now divorced and finally free, offered to help. He uncovered bank statements. Margaret had been hiding credit cards and secret accounts for years. She had resources. He had power. And she wasn't done. Margaret started showing up at Ella's workplace with baby gifts. Rattles, booties, tiny onesies. She'd wait until Ella was near co-workers, then loudly announce her joy about the future grandchild. Ella had no choice but to smile or look ungrateful. When Ella joined an online pregnancy group, Margaret joined too. Under a fake name. Always replying to Ella's comments, always just behind her. Ella switched groups. Margaret found those too. The breaking point came during her second trimester. Ella walked into her OB clinic, signed in and sat down. 2 minutes later, Margaret walked in and sat beside her. "Morning, sweetheart," she whispered, flipping through a parenting magazine. When Ella's name was called, Margaret stood too. "I'm here for emotional support," she told the nurse. Ella looked her dead in the eye. "She's not coming in." Security was called. Margaret cried loudly about being cut out of her grandchild's life as they escorted her out. That night, Ella and Ryan sat in their living room surrounded by cameras, printouts, and notepads. "We need to document everything," Ryan said, flipping open a notebook. "Every visit. Every text. Every item she sends." They added new cameras around the house, updated passwords, and placed alerts on their credit files. But Margaret adapted too. She began sending packages to Ryan's workplace instead. "She asked my coworkers how I was handling fatherhood," Ryan said. "She's getting bold." Worse, she started befriending neighbors. The retired couple next door raved about her kindness. "She brings us groceries," the wife said. Ella smiled politely, but inside she trembled. Margaret wasn't being helpful. She was gathering intel. Victoria, Ryan's sister, became an unexpected lifeline. "She's going to try to isolate you," she warned. Soon letters started arriving at friends' houses. Anonymous notes accusing Ella of being mentally unstable during pregnancy. Her book club suddenly changed meeting times. Yoga classmates grew distant. "She's trying to make me alone," Ella whispered. One morning her yoga instructor pulled her aside. "Someone called saying you shouldn't be doing downward dog while pregnant." They seemed concerned. Ella's blood pressure climbed. Her doctor warned her stress was endangering the baby. "She's pushing you to break," Ryan said, placing a gentle hand on her belly. We won't let her win. The next warning came from CB, Ryan's cousin, also Margaret's secret son. She's trying to get you declared incompetent. She's been asking lawyers about power of attorney. Ella's breath caught. She wants to take the baby. She's talking to a psychiatrist about postpartum psychosis, CB said. Ella and Ryan went straight to her OB to document Ella's mental health. The doctor listened carefully. You're not unstable, she said firmly. You're being harassed. CB doubled down on helping, visiting his mother and secretly recording conversations. Margaret was preparing for court. Building a file. She's studying judges, tracking your habits, CB told them. She's not just obsessive. She's strategic. The mailbox overflowed one morning with brochures for adoption agencies. Ella stared at them. She wants me to question myself, she said. Ryan tore them up. She's a monster. But the damage lingered. Every kick Ella felt reminded her that Margaret wanted to take this baby. She started volunteering at the hospital, Victoria said one day. The one where you're delivering. She's manipulating the staff, Ryan muttered. Ella couldn't sleep. Security footage became her bedtime story. Ryan installed panic buttons. Still Margaret found ways in. She sent flowers to Ella's office every Friday. To my wonderful daughter-in-law, the cards read. Colleagues thought it was sweet. Ella felt sick. The 8th month brought terror to their doorstep. Literally. A woman with official documents knocked, saying she was a social worker. Someone reported emotional instability, she said. I'm here to investigate. Ella called Ryan in tears. The woman inspected their home, asked questions about Ella's mental health. Though she found nothing alarming, the report stayed on record. She laid a legal foundation, Ella whispered. They traced the call to an anonymous hotline. No way to prove who placed it. She's using the system against us, Ryan said. Their attorney reviewed everything. You've got to move. It won't stop. But how do you outrun someone who always finds you? Margaret's social media page, Grandmother's Love Denied, grew quickly. She wrote poetry about being kept from her grandchild. She never names us, Ryan said. But everyone knows. Ella stopped checking the page. She's not just after our baby. She wants to break me. Margaret befriended hospital staff. She brought homemade cookies to the maternity ward and handed out photos of the nursery she built. One nurse, however, recognized her from a previous hospital. I've seen her do this before, she said quietly to Ryan. They took it seriously and assigned extra security. Labor began 3 days past Ella's due date. They drove to a new hospital in a different town using aliases. During labor, Ryan coordinated with security. He used code words, confirmed staff identities and double-checked every room. Ella, in pain, still kept scanning for danger between contractions. She won't ruin this, she whispered. Their daughter was born at 11:47 p.m., perfect and healthy. As Ella held her baby, she cried not just from joy but from relief. She's here, Ella whispered. She's ours. But even that moment wasn't safe. The next morning, a nurse brought in a gift basket. No note. Inside were designer clothes, a handmade blanket, and a card that read, "With love from Grandma. Soon." Security was called. She knows we're here, Ryan said, jaw clenched. They left the hospital early, escorted out a side door by security while a nurse distracted Margaret circling in the parking garage. At home they found more signs. Flowers on the porch, toys from an exclusive boutique. The cameras showed her arriving at 3 a.m., avoiding motion sensors. She mapped out our defenses, Ryan muttered. CB called the next day. She's building a legal case. She hired a lawyer known for winning grandparent custody. She wants to sue us? Ella gasped. She's got receipts, nursery photos, fake support letters. She's playing victim. Ryan compiled their own file. Texts, footage, hospital statements. If she goes to court, we'll be ready, he said. But life wasn't normal. Ella lived in fear. Every baby cry, every knock on the door made her flinch. She posted about the baby again, Victoria said. She's asking strangers for advice about alienated grandparent rights. Their pediatrician said someone had called asking for the baby's medical info. Ella burst into tears. We have to leave. Ryan agreed. 4 away. somewhere she can't follow. Victoria offered her address for job applications. Ryan got interviews under a different name. When a company in another state offered him a job, they planned the move like a heist. No movers. No warnings. No goodbye parties. They packed overnight and disappeared at 3 a.m. The rental house was modest but had a fenced yard and good locks. They used aliases for everything. No social media. No public announcements. Ella finally felt air in her lungs again. 3 months passed. No packages. No unmarked cars. No texts. She joined a local moms group using just her first name. They don't know, she whispered to Ryan. They just see me as a new mom. He smiled. That's what you are. Their daughter thrived. She giggled, crawled, and babbled. Ryan's shoulders relaxed, his eyes softened. This is how it should have been all along, Ella whispered one night. Ryan nodded. We're finally free. Victoria visited with updates. She lost everything. Her lawyer dropped her. Even her support groups turned on her. Without Ella and Ryan to target, Margaret's behavior had worsened. She kept trying to file court cases but couldn't without an address. She's unraveling. They listened in silence. You were right to leave, Victoria said. As the baby's first birthday approached, Ella baked a small cake. No big party. Just them. I used to dream of this day, she told Ryan. And now it's here. Their daughter smashed frosting in her hair, laughing. She'll never know what it took to protect her, Ryan whispered. That's the point, Ella replied. She never will. They built new routines, new doctors, new habits. Every day felt like healing. Ella smiled more, slept better, ate without checking the windows. Their baby took her first steps on the porch, squealing in delight. Can you believe this is our life now? Ryan asked. No threats. No cameras. Just a baby with cake on her face. Victoria stayed in touch, relaying family news. Most relatives had cut Margaret off. She's alone, Victoria said. Still waiting for someone to blame. But Ella no longer cared. I'm done living in her shadow, she said. She can rot in it. That night, Ella tucked her daughter into bed and kissed her forehead. No nightmares, no visitors, she whispered. Only dreams. Ryan stood at the doorway watching. We made it. Ella turned to him, smiling. We really did. They stepped outside together. The stars were out. No headlights in the driveway. No packages on the porch. Just peace. They had lost their home, their city, and part of their family. But what they'd gained was priceless. Safety, love, freedom. As they held each other on the front step, the wind gently swaying the trees, Ella knew one thing. They had finally won. Moral lesson. Protecting your peace and your family is worth any cost. Sometimes, love means walking away, not from people but from patterns that destroy you. Remember to hit the like button, comment and subscribe to this channel for more of this.